Hey folks, it's Farmer Marshall, and I'm here to tell you about 15 vegetables that you can plant in November. Yeah, I said in November. Now I know what you're thinking. November? Isn't it too late to plant? Well, not necessarily, depending on your grow zone. There's plenty of stuff you can still put in the ground today. Now I've been growing food for my family for over 30 years, and I'm just like a lot of you. If you have a garden, you want to get the most out of it as you can. Now, I know a lot of you are ramping down in your gardening or stopping altogether. But what if you didn't have to? What if you could grow good, healthy vegetables all fall and winter long? What if you could take advantage of vegetables that grow better in cooler weather than it does in the long, hot summer? What if you can plant something that's going to last not only through the fall, but even through the winter and continue to give you fresh food? It's all about knowing what to plant and knowing your grow zone. Now, if you aren't convinced, let me give you several benefits of growing in the fall, and these are benefits that most of you can relate to. It's not hot outside, so you don't have to suffer through the heat and the blazing sun. Neither do your plants. And since it's not so hot outside, you don't have to water as much because the water isn't evaporating after you water your garden. There are fewer pests, so you don't have to fight off the bugs that are trying to eat your garden. And like I mentioned earlier, many plants enjoy the cooler weather than they do the heat. And the cooler weather does something to many vegetables that you're going to be surprised about. But we'll get to that later in the list. Successful growing in November depends mainly on your USDA hardiness grow zone. If you know your grow zone, that will help you determine what your average first frost date is and what your average last frost date is. It also gives you information on average minimum temperature. So if you don't know your grow zone, just Google what is my grow zone and put in your zip code. That'll tell you all you need to know. Now let's dig into the list of the top 15 vegetables you can grow in November, pun intended. Now first on my list is the gardener's favorite, garlic. Garlic is great for fall planting. Now there are many different varieties of garlic, but they're broken down into two different categories. First is your hardneck garlic, which is better for growing in cooler northern grow zones. And then there's your softneck garlic, which is better for your warmer grow zones. Now, if you've ever bought garlic from a grocery store, chances are that's going to be the softneck garlic. Now, with garlic, patience is key because it takes 8 to 9 months before you can harvest it. In fact, it's probably going to be late spring or early summer before you harvest them. Now, whether you live in the northern grow zone or in a southern grow zone, it's best to mulch around your garlic to protect it from the winter weather. Now, for my southern gardeners, this one's for you. Onions. Plant them using starts or sets. Don't bother trying to do seeds this time of year. Use sets or transplants, not seeds. That way, your roots can establish themselves, and in the spring, when it starts to warm up, your plants will start to take off. Now, depending on the variety, your onions might take 90 or even 120 days for harvest. I'm going to include bunching onions, or what some people refer to as green onions or scallions, as a part of this category of onions, because not everyone wants a big onion. Some people just want the tops. They're hardy down to 20 degrees, and they can survive brief temperatures in the teens. Now, one trick that I've used for green onions is that if you buy some green onions to eat, save the white part with the roots on it. Replant that. I've had green onions that have lasted me over a year. All I do is cut them down and let them regrow. Free food. Next on my list is collard greens. It's a favorite in many gardeners, and they grow fantastic in fall and winter. These guys can survive down to 10 or 20 degrees, depending on the variety. And remember how I said something about how the cooler weather, or maybe even a frost, does something special to certain vegetables? Well, collard greens are on that list of vegetables that get special treatment. And that special thing is that the collard green plant will take the starch within the plant and convert it over to sugars, which acts as a natural antifreeze, and it helps to sweeten the plant. Now for me, I'm like many of you. I tend to cover my plants if I know I'm going to get a frost or a snow. But once that bad weather's over with, I uncover them and the plants will start to take off and grow again. But one word of warning, when it does warm up in the spring, collard greens do have a tendency to start to bolt. So I'm in the south, and for me, when it starts to get warmer in the spring, it really starts to get warm, fast. So, but if you're in a cooler environment where it doesn't take off really fast as far as the warmer weather, you should be just fine. But keep an eye out because you'll notice that your plant starts to grow from here to here to here very quickly. And that's when it's starting to bulk, which means it's about to produce seeds. So you want to harvest the plants then, or actually maybe even before then. Next on my list is carrots. I know some people grow them in the summer, and so did I, but I also planted some in the fall. They're in a raised bed. Take a look at this. Now, when you're planting carrots, you want to start with seeds because carrots are essentially a root, and they don't like to have their roots disturbed. Now, I planted some tender sweet carrots, and I expect them to be ready in about 70 days. They can take a frost. And when planting carrots, you want them to get close to maturity before temperatures drop below 20 degrees. And at that point, you want to make sure you cover them with straw mulch to help protect them from the freezing temperatures. Now, if you do protect them, they can survive up to grow zones 5 and 6. And similar to collard greens, carrots actually get a little sweeter once they get a little cooler weather. Now, I did mention a couple ways of protecting your vegetables: mulch, straw, frost cloth, or even a cold frame. All of these can help people in colder grow zones to protect the vegetables so you can get a harvest. The next on my list is a kind of unusual looking vegetable and not so well known, and that's the underappreciated kohlrabi, which does great in the fall and winter, and if you do it well, you can get a harvest within 60 days. And one great thing about kohlrabi is you can eat the leaves and you can eat the bulbs. Now, don't expect to get a ton of leaves off of each kohlrabi plant, but one thing I've started to do is I'll take the leaves and mix them in with something like collard greens or mustard greens. All right, folks, I've shared 5 winter vegetables with you. What's your favorite winter vegetables? Do me a favor, drop it in the comments. Let's share some ideas. I'd love to hear what you're planting. And it's not just because I'm nosy. Next on my list is spinach. It's great for fall and winter gardening. I've had mine survive the snow under a frost cover, and it can last down to 15 degrees, depending on the variety. And just like collard greens, it can survive a frost, and it will get sweeter because of that frost. Another fall and winter favorite is kale. If you get kale on the ground when it's cool before it actually gets cold and let it mature, some kales will last to 5-degree temperatures, specifically your red Russian kale. Now, other kales, such as your dinosaur kale, can last down to about 10-15 degrees with frost covering. And that's something that's very important for a lot of these vegetables. If you're in a colder temperature and you want to grow them, give them a frost covering or give them roll covers or put them in a greenhouse. If you can protect them, you can grow them. And one thing you want to consider when you fall gardening, if you're growing in ground or if you're growing above ground in raised beds or in pots, because those pots and raised beds, since they're above ground, those roots will freeze quicker than if you have them planted in ground. Now, I'm not saying that I'm against raised beds because obviously I have raised beds myself, but that 5-10 degree temperature difference between a raised bed, pots, and being in ground can make a difference in whether or not your plant survives or thrives. Now, I did start my kale from seed, but if you're starting your kale in November, your best bet is to get starts or transplants. Another great vegetable that's perfect for the fall is bok choy. Bok choy is fast growing, so you can harvest it in 45 to 60 days, and that's from seed. Of course, if you're planting it in November, you might want to get starts, or hopefully you already had your own starts from seed. Bok choy can survive temperatures as low as 27 degrees, and it will survive through a light frost. And if you help it, like I said earlier, with frost covering or roll covering, anything you can do to protect that plant, it can survive even lower temperatures. And don't forget to mulch around the base of the plant to protect those roots. Next on my list is lettuce. And more specifically, I think you do better off if you plant red lettuce, because red lettuce does better in the cooler weather. Now, that doesn't mean that a green lettuce won't do well too, because last year I planted what's called black seeded Simpson lettuce. And honestly, that lasted through 20-degree temperatures, and we had a snow. We had 2 straight days temperatures were below 20 degrees, and it survived and thrived. All once the weather picked up, so did the plant. So if you want to experiment with different types of lettuce, feel free. Just know that a red lettuce in general will do better in the cooler and cold weather. Beets are another cool weather favorite. If you start from seed, you can harvest them within 50 to 70 days. And yes, they can handle some cool weather. They'll give you great roots and some nice greens for your salad. And beets are another example of how cooler weather can make a vegetable taste better because it helps reduce some of that earthy taste and makes it a little sweeter. And if you're interested in finding a favorite, try Detroit Dark Red. They're great. And speaking of great, I think it's great that you're still watching. I really do appreciate your support of the channel. And if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor, share it out like a good harvest to family, friends, and members of the gardening community. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. That way you'll be here next time I have something going on in the garden. Now, as a gardener, harvest season is my most important time of year. But my most important harvest is you. So please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. That way you'll be here next time I have something going on in the garden. Now let's get back to the list. Now something else that has to be on the list is mustard green. These greens handle the cool weather, they're fast growing, and they give you massive production. And of course, they get sweeter. Days to harvest for mature greens, anywhere between 30 and 45 days. But if you're going to harvest baby leaves, give yourself maybe 20 days, and you can harvest those. And like all of the greens on this list, you can use the cut and come again method of harvesting. Last season, I got 3 harvests from these mustard greens. And when the season was over, I let them go to bolt and produce seeds. And within 3 months, before the summer was over, I had more mustard greens growing up. If I didn't mention cabbage, this list would be incomplete. If you're in a milder climate, cabbage is great for fall planting. Now it takes about 70 to 100 days for them to be harvested, but it's a harvest that's well worth the wait. Now with cabbage, you can overwinter them in certain grow zones. Now last year or last winter, we had a snow, as I mentioned, and we had 20-degree temperatures. Now it only lasted 2 days, but they overwintered under a frost cloth, and once the temperatures raised back up, they kept growing, and I got a late winter harvest. If you're going to plant these in November, plant starts. Please plant starts. You didn't think that I forgot about herbs, did you? No. Next on the list is cilantro. It bolts in the summer, but thrives in the cooler weather. Here's one grower's tip for you. Succession plant every 3 to 4 weeks. That way you can have a continuous harvest. And that harvest from seed can be anywhere between 30 and 40 days. Another herb that's frost tolerant and hardy is parsley. You can either start it from seed or pick it up from your local garden center. It takes about 60 to 75 days for a harvest. If I've missed one of your favorites on the list, please put it in the comments. We'll all join in. And like I said, it's not just because I'm nosy. Number 15 on the list is arugula. It's peppery, but it's a quick producer. You can harvest arugula within 30 to 40 days. Simple grower's tip, succession sow every 2 weeks. That way you can have a continuous harvest. Now I know this was a top 15 list of vegetables and herbs, but let me add something else to this list. Fruit trees. If you plant a fruit tree in the fall, the leaves may die off. Well, actually they are going to die off, but the roots will continue to grow. It's a great time to allow your tree to focus on the ground up. Let those roots grow to give you a stronger tree for in the spring and summer. Because the bigger and better those roots grow, the more strong and more prepared that tree will be for dealing with the summer heat and possible drought. And here's one more grower's tip that you're probably not going to like. With those fruit trees, if it starts producing on its first year, pull the fruit off. The reason you want to do that is because this will allow the tree to focus on growing the tree itself, which will help give you a bigger, stronger tree. They'll be better prepared for future years where, frankly, you're going to get more fruit if you sacrifice some fruit now. You still have time to get out there and get something planted. So let's get out there and get a little dirty. Yeah,